Learned how to use Twitch this weekend.
What's that?
Learned how to use Twitch this
Oh, boy.
weekend. That was interesting. It's like a live video type thing that younger people are using. That I was forced to start using.
Okay, 7 o'clock. I will call to order this regular monthly meeting of the Village of Trumansburg Board of Trustees. Do we have any changes to the agenda?
I will have executive session personnel. Recommend
EMS?
Yeah.
I have a resolution for us to consider for the pro-housing communities designation. Probably under-
Separate from this grant application was.
separate from the grant application, yeah.
Anything else?
Is the housing resignation?
How does that?
Resignation. Does that mean to be-
We do not need to accept it.
Okay.
Yes, and I'll have an executive session item as well. No other changes to the agenda then. We have our consent agenda, which includes our abstracts and meeting minutes from June 10th. We have another year-ending abstract from the previous fiscal year, abstract number 14. This is general fund totaling $21,539.30. Water fund totaling $36,158.49. Sewer fund totaling $586.28. And trust and agency totaling $746.96. And then we have our second abstract of the current fiscal year, the new fiscal year, general fund totaling $142,614.84. Water fund totaling $18,698.17. Sewer fund $9,011.78. And trust and agency $4,776.30. So I would entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Give a second.
Second.
Any questions, comments, or need to remove something from the consent agenda? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, item number 4 is our first public comment period. We have one member of the public present. Anything? Any comments or questions? None? Then we'll move right along. Item number 5, reports of representatives. We don't have any representatives present at the moment. Hopefully, either Mary or Ann will be able to join us. If they do, then we will certainly come back to it. Item number 6, reports from this board. I don't have anything except for executive session items. Other than what was already announced a week or so ago that we got the formal award letter today from, let's see, where is the form?
Like a 9.
Formal award letter from New York State DOT that we have been awarded the Federal Department of Transportation TAP grant in the amount of $2,656,000. This will cover 80% of the cost of installing sidewalk from the farmers market to Seneca Road and from Route 96 to Compass, heading west on Seneca Road, and then from Route 96 to the doctor's office heading east on Seneca Road. That's good news. Kim Partner.
Camp Barton closing.
Camp Barton closing, we're still waiting. So no real update there, other than that. We're still
That
waiting.
feels like an update.
It feels like it's more imminent than it was a few months ago,
Sorry.
so we're getting there.
Eminently imminent,
What's that?
eminently imminent.
Imminently imminent, yes. So we'll move along to Marcia, fire.
Just a brief report. We had 38 calls for the month of June. One included a lake rescue, a garage fire, and we had mutual aid to Enfield for a barn and a dwelling fire. And other than that, nothing else to report.
Okay. It's gonna be one of those meetings.
Yeah, geez.
Until we get to executive session. EMS youth street treatment.
Not much to report on youth. We usually take this. We skip the summer meeting, so we're sort of into our budget season. Obviously, youth commission coincides with town, so that'll be our next step, but we're not quite there yet. Trees, I don't have any updates other than to just add a plug that our program for people who would like to request assistance with tree removal that's in the village right of way should put in a request. There are documents on the stack page of the website. If you're looking for them, you can submit them to Jess, front office, or Jess in the front office, which was a joke I've been waiting for some time. Or also me, although that would be less fun.
Not me, no.
No. For EMS, we'll start with call report 12 in town of Covert, 1 in Enfield, 5 in Hector, 5 in Interlaken Village, 2 in the city of Ithaca, 1 in the town of Ithaca, 1 in Lansing, 1 in Lodi, 5 in Mecklenburg, 1 in Seneca Falls, 30 in the village, and 18 in the town of Ulysses. I also, Joel, you can feel free to chime in here. I'm gonna give a quick report. Joel has had a committee working on building a new ambulance. This is the year that we are scheduled to replace our oldest ambulance. Joel and I were meeting last week, and he mentioned that if we were going to rebuild our current ambulance, it would be about 270,000 to do as is, the exact same model, sort of to replicate what we have. Fortunately, the committee has found better, much more viable financially, at least, options that align also with the needs of the department. It's much more approachable in the range of 170, maybe, you know, up to 200, kind of in that range, which is, as far as our budget goes, sort of right on where we are, which is, I think, a lesson that we'll incorporate into our replacement schedules, that we need to be a little more proactive about inflationary pressures and adjustments. But at least for this year, it looks like we're going to kind of get away with it, that we'll be able to keep it. I think, Joel, did you say it was about 170 for the last ambulance? Is that, as memory serves? So we're right in that range, which is unheard of. The primary difference is that our last ambulance was heavily customized. This one is a little bit more off the shelf. Doesn't necessarily make it lower quality, it just makes it cost less. So that is exciting. As I said, there's a committee working on it, so you know that'll be, you know, later in the fall we'll get more details, but I wanted to just make sure everyone's kind of up to speed and where that's coming up, because it, you know, it's a big price tag. Even though it's lower than it could be, it's still quite high. So we're moving that way. I also mentioned at the outset, I wanted to add a permissive referendum. So when Joel joined the department a decade or so ago, he donated a bunch of furnishings for our room. So for those of you that don't know, our overnight EMS crews, and you know, they're working 12-hour shifts, so even the daytime EMS crews sometimes will, you know, have a bed. There's a sort of, I don't want to call it lounge area, but an area that's separate from the office, where there are 2 rooms, one with a bed in each, and then a recliner in the middle. And it's basically an area that you can sort of decompress between calls. You can sleep if it's overnight, and then be on call that area, aside from those furnishings that Joel donated 10 years ago, has not been updated in a very long time, so. We were talking about this. This is one of the things that came up because we're trying to redo our replacement schedules. And this is one of the more acute needs. It is not something that we budgeted for. So in trying to think through how to do this, it occurred to us that it's really the perfect opportunity to use the donation reserve, right? This feels very much in line with what that reserve is for. So I would like to propose that we purchase 2 mattresses and 2 chairs for up to 5,800, we'll call it, from the EMS donation reserve. And I'll just make that a motion. So subject to permissive referendum, up to 5,800.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Comments or questions?
It was mattresses, 2 chairs, 2 recliners and 1 chair.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so 3 chairs, 2 mattresses.
Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, then all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed.
One thing that I forgot to mention just about the ambulance committee, the committee that's working on building out the ambulance in that direction. Just quickly note that Tony Whitaker, who's now for DMEMT, is leading that committee. So thanks to Tony for that work. He is a very busy man, so that he can fit that in. Greatly appreciate it. But I believe that is it for now until executive session.
Okay. DPW water sewers, farmers market.
Yes, not a ton to talk about, certainly not for farmers market. CPZR, I did just want to give this board an update on short-term rentals. Just because I think maybe it's more for the public if anyone's listening in or sees this later. There was a little bit of confusion. We did cover this at the State of the Village, but the current approach for short-term rentals is to I don't want to say increase, but we've clarified the fire and building code requirements for short-term rentals, particularly for mixed-use buildings, so commercial in the downstairs and residential up top, so stuff on Main Street, as well as 3 or more unit buildings in the village. And we're kind of letting that settle through and see how that happens and how that works in the community. And then the other part to match with that then is to monitor that in some way. Previously, and this is what the update is, previously the county had data that they were able to share with us about short-term rentals in the community. They have stopped subscribing to that service or will in the next month or so. So we have our last set of data from them looking back, I want to say like October through April of this year. And that's the last that we'll be getting from them. So I've been starting to reach out to other places to potentially procure this data. Sounds like county chamber might be able to have it. They get county-wide data and they're asking their, well, whoever they work with, if they can get municipal level data. And then I also learned that the Senate and Assembly passed and is now just waiting for the governor's signature for a statewide short-term rental registry. And so should the governor sign that between now and the end of the year, I don't exactly know the rollout for that, but the idea is that they will at the state level start requiring this data and then sharing that back with municipalities. So one way or another, there might be a gap of some 6 months or so here potentially, or maybe a little bit longer for the state to put things together, but fairly confident we'll be able to get to see that data kind of over time. But this is something that the committee is keeping an eye on. There really is a variety of perspectives on the committee, which is interesting. I think in general, we've been fairly aligned on many of the efforts we've gone through. This one, I think, has the broadest perspectives on the committee. So we're definitely keeping an eye on this and wanting to make sure that we don't get too far over into the worrisome number of short-term rentals in the community. So that's just kind of an update on what's going on there. The only other thing I have from my report is a quote for impellers for the sewer system at Lake Street, and that is in the Dropbox. That is 60I. So there's a quote there. There's also an accompanying letter that says there is only one place that is the authorized support and resale for this. So here we are. So I would like to make a motion to approve this quote for 2 impellers at Lake Street and other labor and associated
I'm sorry, two, what did you say?
impellers, IMPELLERS, yeah, at Lake Street. And so that quote is for $6,104. And I was eyeing the sewage treatment and disposable contractual line for that.
I'll second.
Questions on the quote for the impeller?
What's the travel charge? What is that?
I think that's for labor to come install, I'm assuming, but I don't know
Okay.
for sure.
Because above that, it says labor mobile.
Right. I genuinely don't know. I would only be making guesses.
Oh, okay.
My assumption here is that there's labor to go install it, travel time for them to get here, though that does seem pricey. And then freight for it to get shipped here, but I don't know for sure. Nor do I know why the quantities are thus.
4 people.
Could be 4 people.
Any other questions? Very good, then all in favor of approving the quote as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
All right, that is all I have for my report.
I do see we've been joined by Ann Foreman on Zoom, so I think we'll pause our report and come back to Ann. We're moving right along, Ann, so we decided to come back to you when you got here, and here we are. So the floor is yours.
All right, thank you very much. Sorry I'm late. We did not have a legislature meeting this past week due to the 4th of July holiday. We decided to take one of our meetings off this month. So just a couple of updates. We had to close the Department of Motor Vehicles for a few hours on Friday, June 28th, due to shots fired, and a bunch of people from the community went in there for safety. So we had to close down the DMV for a number of hours. But in our sheriff's department assisted to make sure everybody was safe. There was nobody injured at that point, but wanted to bring that up you've probably heard me say before, there's more increased violence and gun activity downtown Ithaca. So it's something that we're working with our department of the sheriff's department and also Ithaca Police Department on to try and respond more quickly and do a number of things, as I've talked about before. But and when we look at the new center of government, we're going to hopefully be building. That's going to be a key thing to try and consolidate some of the departments so it's easier to provide security. On a lighter note, this week we will be announcing the winner of the I Voted sticker contest. I can't give you any pre-announcement, so you're going to have to wait for that. And we completed a mural on the Human Services Annex, which is the county office for the aging and Veterans Services on State Street. So it's a really huge, beautiful mural. So please take a look at that if you're driving down State Street. And we are looking at, as going through committee, we're just starting the process to look at, could the county have a living wage. And, so I can give you more detail if you're interested in that, but we're just starting to say, yes, we want to look at that. And that's about it.
Any questions for Ann? Well, thank you, Ann. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Right. Police, right.
Few updates. One minute. Okay. I had it and I lost my page.
Can see this. Side of the table, so it's like-
Okay, where?
it's close to the ball, and go in there.
Yeah, it's better.
Okay. So, from Chief Nelson, the report for June is I think a little bit more than last month, 109 calls for service. So it included one mental health call, one domestic call, and one injured animal call. There were 10 criminal investigation, including 2 fraud and scam. And then they also helped with the Gorge Marathon, the Gorges Marathon or half marathon. The Trumansburg High School graduation, and then Porch Fest as well. From what I heard, the half marathon, it went fairly well, and it was very quick, 7 to 7:45. They closed down Main Street, and they helped bring the runners along. They were actually at the beginning of right before the runners were able to start running, so they kind of guided the runners out of Trumansburg to the Black Diamond Trail. There were several non-criminal investigations. 33, which includes 33 property checks, 15 informational inquiries and background checks for pistol permits. There was actually 1 dog bite. And there were other calls as well. So that is that report. And just from talking to Chief Nelson. So we are still looking for a supervisory role. Chief Nelson's he stays pretty busy, just trying to make sure that all of his officers are well equipped, well trained. We recently had a part-time hire start. And then we also have a retirement, which means that there will be a full-time position open. And then this one's fairly short. So the one thing that we talked about and that we consistently get reports on are speeding vehicles, particularly near the golf course during this time of year. People for sure go over the 30-mile speed limit constantly, coming out of the golf course and also just going up that street leaving Trumansburg. So some of the things that we talked about remedying that is to have one of the flashing signs that gives the speed limit of the driver. Currently, they're the ones that we had already approved. They're being delivered, but have not arrived yet. So as soon as we get those, they will be up. And then the other thing was in that same regard, the recent grant that we received. I'm not quite sure what that includes, but it was an interesting discussion to think that maybe we could include in whenever we do start doing the permitting for the sidewalk, flashing lights for pedestrian crossings. If that could be considered as part of that project. We constantly get requests for either stop signs or some kind of crosswalk around Union and Main, and then Elm and Main, I think are the main areas that we need to think about while looking at expanding that crosswalk. And that's what I have.
Hey. Clerk treasurer.
Okay, so we started selling trash bags a week earlier than expected. We sold 95 in the first 5 days of business. All of that money, in case anyone cares, goes directly to Red Lion. The village does not profit. It doesn't even enter our bank accounts, which is why we cannot accept a credit card. But you can make checks out to Red Lion or pay cash. You can get them in the village offices during our hours. Public facing 9 to 3, Monday to Thursday, and 1 on Friday. In the line of taxes, tax bills came out June 1st. We have collected in the first month 80% of the levy, so that amounts to 634 bills processed by our fantastic deputy, and then by me. She does the bulk of the work on that front effort though. So there's 95,000 still outstanding, and of course, taxes. The next penalty for anyone listening kicks in. It's on your bill, due by July 31st, and then so on month by month. Final taxes being due October 31st. We are starting the New York State retirement audit, internal audit in earnest. We have all the workbooks prepped. We're beginning with those individuals currently on payroll who are likely to be the soonest to retire and working back. And it's going to be an effort, as you all know. Some of those documents are in paper form only, and amount of timesheets that will need to be compiled, things like that. But it's exciting to have that process started. I'm also beginning the personnel policy collaboration, and so started working with Joel and Joe today in a collaborative way, because I know they both have comments, and then to bring it forward and see how we want to move next. But there's some basic tweaks and language edits that seemed good to start with before we bring it to a board level or a legal level, but we'll be continuing to be in collaboration with the mayor as he supervises that effort. What else? The berms are growing. They got watered today. It's nice. I'm trying to remember to drive slowly on Halsey. The ditch helps. That's it. Does anyone have any questions about anything clerk treasurer office related?
Have you seen any applications for the tree program?
No. No, there was so I surfaced it in a newsletter after the June meeting, but I made a note to do it again to show people where it is on the webpage. So I'll do that, and I feel like someone made a phone inquiry, but I have not received a follow-up.
Okay, I've had a couple people reach out and I directed them where to go, and I thought they would follow up, but they haven't. So
Well, that might
just let me know if you.
calls, or they might be in process with that. So we'll certainly keep our eyes open and let you know.
Just if you get any.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see, old business, EV charger update.
Okay, so when I put this, or asked for this to be on the agenda, thought I would have a more concrete update. As it is, I have an invoice from NICEAG to upgrade our electrical service, so behind where the chargers will go. And I was very excited to sort of kick off this project with an actual expense. But it has been slower than I expected to get a final set of deliverables and project scope information from the contractor. So until that is finalized, I don't start spending. But hopefully by next month, we'll be able to take some real positive steps forward. That's really the whole update. The update is no update until next month, unfortunately. But we're getting closer.
Okay, good. Let's see, we have a pro-housing community resolution.
Yeah, so this is at the Dropbox, little bit of backstory here. There are two ways to qualify, I suppose, for the pro-housing communities designation. One of which is to show sufficient growth in new housing over a 3-year period, I believe it is. The other, if you aren't able to show that, is to pass this resolution. There is a good chance that we will meet the requirement for the 3-year growth due to 46 South being approved and permitted by now by the time we submit. So we might be in a fine position. However, and this will get to the part that we get in new business, there is a grant opportunity that is being open only to pro-housing designated communities. To get all the right pieces in order for that, we have to submit our application for pro-housing communities by the end of this month. So I have this resolution here. We can kind of go a couple different ways. I see this as a hedging our bets a bit. If we want to pass it, it doesn't commit us to any, it doesn't bind us to anything other than our stated commitments to continue furthering housing, which when I read through this by my reading, pretty much everything we did in the zoning update fits the bill. We don't technically have to pass this. I think we'll have enough without it, but seeing as we're kind of in flight with everything and there's a July 31st deadline and this is the last time we'll meet before then, I felt like bringing it up and seeing if we'd be interested in passing it as kind of a hedge. So I'm happy to read through the resolution and then we can discuss further. So I'll give it a go. Whereas the village of Trumansburg, hereinafter local government, believes that the lack of housing for New York residents of all ages and income levels negatively impacts the future of New York State's economic growth and community well-being. Whereas the housing crisis has negative effects at regional and local levels, we believe that every community must do their part to contribute to housing growth and benefit from the positive impacts a healthy housing market brings to communities. Whereas we believe that supporting housing production of all kinds in our community will bring multiple benefits, including increasing housing access and choices for current and future residents, providing integrated accessible housing options that meets the needs of people with sensory and mobility disabilities, bringing economic opportunities and vitality to our communities, and allowing workers at all levels to improve their quality of life through living closer to their employment opportunities. Whereas we believe that evidence showing that infill development that reduces sprawl and supports walkable communities has significant environmental and public health benefits. And whereas we believe that affirmatively furthering fair housing and reducing segregation is not only required by law, but is essential for keeping our community strong and vibrant. Now therefore it is hereby resolved that the village of Trumansburg, in order to take positive steps to alleviate the housing crisis, adopts the pro-housing communities pledge, which will have us endeavor to take the following important steps. 1, streamlining permitting for multifamily housing, affordable housing, accessible housing, accessory dwelling units, and supportive housing. 2, adopting policies that affirmatively further fair housing. 3, incorporating regional housing needs into planning decisions. 4, increasing development capacity for residential uses. 5, enacting policies that encourage a broad range of housing development, including multifamily housing, affordable housing, accessory dwelling units, and supportive housing. So I would move that resolution.
Second.
And we can discuss what we'd like to do with it.
Motion and a second. Conversation, questions, discussion.
don't have much to say other than to reiterate your read, which is basically, these are the things that we already did. It's
Yeah.
certainly, it's not quite the language I would use, like the first whereas feels a little clunky, I don't really think about the housing impacts of the state's economic growth.
Right.
But I don't feel like it really detracts other than it feels clunky.
Right, and they get grouchy if you try and make too many changes.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that third whereas also the like including all of these things are like maybe not the things I would list, but ultimately it's the. The steps are the ones that we are doing anyway,
Right,
and having a pledge to do the thing that we're doing anyway, especially when it doesn't obligate you to do anything specific or anything actionable other than sort of philosophically where we stand.
right. Yeah, and from my perspective on the CPZR, like this, these are things we will be keeping in mind. And then it also helps furthering this grant possibility as we move forward, so it all lines up for me for sure.
And what does the grant possibility encompass?
So that is, there's the consolidated funding. CFA, I don't know, whatever it is. Application, that's the word, yes. And so that has a number of different grants you can apply for. In working with MRB, they identified water quality grant as well as this grant, both of which, and there's resolutions that will say a little bit more about the details, could be used towards addressing inflow and infiltration into the water system. Specifically on the housing side, when you look at our capacity as a village, land wise, water wise, sewer wise, so forth, the sewer is the closest to kind of the limit. The thing will hit the soonest if we added a lot more housing capacity, particularly because of that I&I issue with the stormwater getting in there and causing it to go over capacity. So they felt, MRB felt that would be a good one to go after because it links so closely with the housing.
Yeah, that would be
concerns.
great.
Really? Comments?
I don't, I think, I mean, I agree with the comments that you made. But I think overall it's a good resolution.
If there are no other comments or questions, then all in favor of adopting the resolution as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. You have any other items of old business? New business, speaking of grants, first one is the water quality improvement
Yes.
grant application. This is the resolution of support from us to file our own grant.
Yes, how about, I'll read this one, and then the next one is substantially the same. Actually, maybe it's a little bit different. I'll read them both when we get them. So I'll start with the WQIP. This is the Water Quality Improvement Project. It's one of those two stream grant opportunities. So I'll just read this in and then we can go from there. Whereas the village board for the village of Trumansburg, located in Tompkins County, supports the submission of a 2024 consolidated funding application CFA on behalf of the village. The Water Quality Improvement Project, WQIP program for an inflow and infiltration project, I&I, within the existing sanitary sewer collection system. And whereas the New York State DEC provides a competitive statewide reimbursement grant program for local governments administered to directly address documented water quality impairments. Whereas the engineering report entitled Preliminary Engineering Report for the Village of Trumansburg Sanitary Sewer Collection System Inflow and Infiltration Investigation recommends implementing the project to help improve water quality and protect public health and minimize sanitary sewer overflows. Now therefore be it resolved, the Village of Trumansburg Village Board identifies the village mayor as the authorized representative of the village to execute necessary documents relative to and as required for the grant application, and be it further resolved that the village board does hereby accept that they shall provide at least 25% match of the total of any grant funding awarded as a local match are hereby appropriated in the form of in-kind services, cash contributions, and obligated from the sewer fund. And be it further resolved that the village board for the village of Trumansburg recognizes and fully supports the submission of the 2024 WQIP by MRB Group on behalf of the village to improve water quality and protect public health. So I will move that.
We have a second.
Yes, I will second it.
Any questions?
What did you say? It should say fully supports the submission of the 2024 WQIP prepared by MRB. That feels nitpicky, and I'm sorry, but just to make it clear.
I think they are I think they will be doing the submission though, maybe. I'm not sure if that's,
Yeah, they do the actual
I
submission.
think they actually submit on our behalf. So
Oh, really? Oh, okay, so it's not like an application.
What's the name of that system, Jess? The new system?
It's an acronym,
Yeah,
and it's not SLRF, it is maybe,
no,
no,
it's not PACE.
And
It's
it's some.
there's an electronic portal. Everything is electronically submitted now for all of this. And you can designate an agent to submit it on your behalf.
Oh, okay, all right. Never mind.
Any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And one more that reads almost identical.
almost identically. We'll take it anyhow. I'll see if I'll use more acronyms. The village board for the village of Trumansburg located in Tompkins County supports the submission of the 2024 CFA on behalf of the village for the capital improvement grant for pro-housing communities for an I&I project within the existing sanitary sewer collection system. And whereas the village has documented I&I in the collection system resulting in monthly flow violations of the Speedies permit for the wastewater treatment plant, and whereas Empire State Development provides a competitive statewide reimbursement grant for local governments that have obtained the pro-housing designation. Now therefore be it resolved that the village of Trumansburg Village Board identifies the mayor as the authorized representative for the village to execute necessary documents relative to and is required for the grant application. And be it further resolved that the village board does hereby accept that they shall provide at least a 50% match with a minimum of 10% equity of the total project costs. And be it further resolved that the village board for the village of Trumansburg recognizes and fully supports the submission of the 2024 capital improvement grant for pro-housing communities by MRB Group on behalf of the village to support infrastructure improvements. I'll move that.
Second. And there's a second. Any comments or questions? So different state agency, different grant name, different match. So let's see if we can't get money one way or the other. There are no comments or questions, then all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed. Okay, any other items of new business? So it's to our second public comment period. Yes, sir.
Last two resolutions, what's the cost of those for this burning taxpayer?
Taxpayers, nothing. These would be sewer. So if awarded the grant, if,
If you order the grant, what is the cost of those trips? Which is.
what's the total? I&I project?
Let me,
Oh,
I can look that up. I want to say it's. Well, so it depends on which grant, but it's, I want to say it's an amount of 1.2 million.
So the total project to basically to flush out all of the I&I that's occurring is about 1 to 1.5 million. So if we were to pay for it, that would be the cost of the village. If we get the 80% matching grant, then we'll pay 20% of that. If we get the 50% matching grant, we'll have to come up with half. Anything else? Seeing no other members of the public online or in person, I would entertain a motion to go into executive session to discuss EMS personnel as well as a legal matter of pending litigation.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.